What's up, everybody? And if you are a Dallas Mavericks fan like myself and also a Luka Doncic fan, and you saw the report from Tim Cato of The Atlantic, then this video is where you want to be. I'm going to give you an unbiased perspective on it, try to be as non-homer as possible. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to read to you the entire report. We're going to review certain things of that report to see if anything has validity to it. And also, I'm going to share my opinion to you about this entire report. I'm also going to share the Tim Cato interview that he had on 105.3 The Fan here in Dallas. And we're just going to go through it as much as possible, try to figure out, is this more of a drama situation? Is this real? Does this report needed to come out at this time? I don't know, a lot of questions to be asked here, but let's go ahead and let's get to it. Let's review everything possible and let's see what's up. And if you are new here to this channel, again, my name is Mario. This is TGK TV. I'll talk about a plethora of items here. We talk about sports locally here in Dallas. Also review cards from sports to Pokemon. Also review micheladas, beers, travel. We do a plethora of stuff here. So if you like this kind of content, definitely subscribe, like the video, and I do hope you enjoy this content. So without further ado, without holding you up, without delaying this even more, let's get straight to it. All right, so for this video, I'm gonna have to chop it up in a couple of parts. First things first, let's go ahead. I'm going to read the entire report to you, voiceover with the pictures. Also, I'm going to get into some of the footage that this report speaks about. I'm going to give you some of my opinions based on what the hell this report says. And then to end it off, I'm going to play the entire interview that Tim Cato had on The Fan today. So, again, if you're a Dallas Mavericks and you're concerned with this whole report of Luka Doncic, long-term stay here with the Dallas Mavericks is an issue for you, is just as much an issue for me and any other Mavs fan out there, then let's go ahead and let's deep dive into this. And hopefully there's suggestions that you could provide in the comments or anything like that that we could probably suggest to Mark Cuban or whatever the case may be to fix whatever this situation may be. That way we could keep our generational talent here in Dallas. So without further ado, let's get straight to the actual article and let's get to it. I hope you bear with my reading. So let's go ahead. All right, so I'm gonna make a quick adjustment. This entire report is long as hell, so I'm not gonna read word by word to you as I've been struggling just to read this clearly for the mic. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna post a photo of each one. You can hit pause on it, read it yourself, and then continue, and then we'll continue this video. That way we cut all this, because look, all this I gotta read, man. I gotta read all that. So instead of doing all the reading, I'm gonna show you pictures, you read it, and then we'll get into this conversation of this video. So let's go. In doing my research with everything, this guy, Bob, or Halabus Voulgaris, is a known gambler, and he is head of the quote-unquote analytical department of the Dallas Mavericks, right? And I've heard of this, like the Mavericks have been approaching games from an analytical perspective, and whatever the case may be. And then to come to hear this report that we heard today, again, I'm skeptical about a lot of things. Why does this report suddenly come out? Why is it about Luka and his long-term future here? It's just, I don't know. Like, he clearly just came out last week saying that he was going to sign the extension. Now, I get it, long-term. I mean, 5 to 6 years is pretty long, but I get it. We want him to be a long-time Mavericks. Now, I just felt like it's just too soon to talk about these things. But I guess if the reporter feels like this is in a way to fix the current issues that's in the organization to then actually keep him long term, then hey, kudos to him. I applaud that, because none of us here on YouTube, like myself, have that direct power. So if you can have a power where you can utilize your voice and to give us a chance to keep Luka a lot longer, then I'm happy for that. And I think Tim Cato was born in Dallas, works for the Atlantic. I believe he used to write for the Dallas Mavericks, from what I read. So I'm pretty sure he is a big-time Mavericks fan and also a Luka Doncic fan. So I would see why it would make sense for him to try to speak up for us Mavericks fans in general and try to keep Luka. So if that was the goal, even though he probably won't say that because he has to be a journalist and report and whatever the case may be, I'm all for it. I'm happy with that. But the thing is, why do we have a gambler as our GM? Where the hell is Donnie Nelson? So let's approach this from the perspective that this entire report was all factual, it's all correct. Then my questions are, why the hell is a analytics guy drafting our players for us? Why is an analytics guy telling Rick Carlisle what rotations to run and what lineups to run and what minutes they play and what style of offense, the pick and roll offense with just Luka? And if that is true, that is troublesome and it is an issue. It is something that the Mavericks do need to fix. Now, could have this been a little bit hyperbole in certain cases? I do feel like it could have been if I'm not believing everything in this report. Because would you buy that the head of the coaching association, Rick Carlisle, would listen to someone's suggestion on a lineup and a rotation? I get it. The Mavericks have had issues this year. They had a whole COVID inactives. They had injuries throughout the year. So when it comes to his lineup changes, of course, he's going to have lineup changes. Now, I mean, I believe Voulgaris' contract is up this season. So if he gets rehired after this report, it's going to be really interesting. Because when I first heard that the Mavericks were doing this whole analytical approach, I thought they actually hired a team of people to do the analytics of what works and what doesn't. And maybe there is a team. Maybe Voulgaris developed a team that does this for him. But I just didn't think this guy would have so much power, if he does indeed have that much power. The thing is, and this isn't to even protect Donnie Nelson. We know Donnie Nelson has struggled as a GM in the past couple of seasons. Yes, we had a home run with Luka, and yes, we had a home run with Jalen Brunson. And Josh Green is still, the deciding factor on whether that was a great pick or not is still out there to be had. But the thing is, if we're gonna put a lot of this blame onto Voulgaris and still keep Donnie Nelson and let go of Voulgaris, whatever the case may be, I just do genuinely feel we need a new GM. I don't think we need to continue with Donnie Nelson. And if we do continue with Donnie Nelson being the head of operations and not quote-unquote the GM, that's fine. He could be our overseas scout. He could be other things, but I do believe that we need an actual GM that could come into this organization without the connections that Donnie Nelson and Mark Cuban developed, without the connections that Mark Cuban has developed with others, with someone that's going to come in here strictly just to want to win. And I'm not saying that those guys don't, but we haven't won in over 10 years. We've been eliminated from the first round every single time we've made it to the playoffs. And it was clearly evident that the Josh Richardson trade for Seth Curry was a mistake. And if Voulgaris was the one that signed off on that, as the report alluded to, then that's definitely an issue. Definitely an issue. JJ Redick, the trade didn't work because he was hurt. And I can't be mad at that. I was actually happy with that trade. So I was all for it. And initially I was all for the Josh Richardson trade as well. It's just the thing is Seth Curry, I just don't see Seth Curry being able to have changed an outcome in that series. I don't. He doesn't play defense like that. I mean, unless he's going to shut down Kawhi, then yeah. So what am I trying to get to? What I'm trying to do with this entire report is it raises a lot of eyebrows. It raises a lot of questions as to what the hell's going on with this organization. If he's saying that there's multiple league sources and other, high officials in the league saying they don't know who to report to, they don't know who to talk to when it comes to making trade decisions or whatever the case may be, that's a problem right there. It's definitely a problem. And then when you look at this Voulgaris guy, I looked at his gambling history. The guy doesn't have any titles. Now that's aside from the point of what I'm trying to make. But if you ain't got no titles, we don't need you on this team. We want winners on this team, okay? Now, before I move forward, there is a part in the beginning of the report where he says in February there was a game between the Golden State Warriors where Luka turned it over and homeboy was like, you know, putting his hands down like calm down. And according to someone's recollection, don't tell me to fucking calm down. If we're talking in basketball terms, right? And I'm playing basketball with some homeboys and someone that is completely superior when it comes to just ability, right? And I'm on the sideline. I ain't got no skins on the wall, and I'm telling you, the great basketball player that you are, calm down. Yeah, I would probably, or whoever that was, has all the right to tell me, don't fucking tell me to calm down. If you know Luka Doncic, you know that guy is very critical of his play. So if he turns it over once, you already know he's beating himself up way more than you could ever do. Calm down. So that's an issue, because if that did happen, that tells me this guy does not know his staff. This guy does not know his team. This guy does not know his players' tendencies or even state emotionally, emotional state. And I looked at the footage, so let's go ahead and let's review this footage right now to see which turnover this could have been. The Dallas Mavericks played the Golden State Warriors twice, on February the 4th and February the 6th. I basically reviewed both second quarters of each game. I tried to get as much footage as I could, so here's what I found. All right, this game here is from the February 4th game, the first game of the two. Saw Luka throw a full court pass. I don't know what he was doing with that. But they did say that the guy, Voulgaris, was on the opposite side of the bench. So he would have been down there, down by the court. So Luka was boxing out. I couldn't see him. Let's go to the next turnover. It says Luka bad pass turnover. This is the fourth turnover of the game. But this is all in the second quarter, as the report mentioned. Here he got stuck, kind of just threw it away. He was looking for a foul. He just stopped running. He looked pretty frustrated. Unfortunately, there is no extra footage on Luka. What the hell? Here's the second game, game 6, where the Mavs found a way to win. Luka misses a layup here. And I'm gonna talk about this again. Here, Luka takes it to the hole, misses another layup. Here you can tell he's frustrated. He wanted to shoot it, pass it right back to him. He's like, I got a mismatch. Let me try again. Let me go for this layup. He goes for a layup. He misses it again, but he got a foul called. And you could tell he was frustrated right here. He was frustrated. He just slaps right, bang. The next possession, this is the very next possession, he turns it over carelessly, keyword carelessly, and there's no extra footage to this. So basically from that footage, there wasn't anything telling that shows you that Luka was yelling at somebody off screen, telling them to, don't tell me to fucking calm down. So that was kind of tough to see, but you could see that there was some turnovers that he had. And in some instances, those turnovers could have led to him being frustrated, and then someone telling him to calm down. Yeah, he would be pissed off. And then even in the game on the 6th, he had 3 straight layups that he missed, and then had a turnover. So that could have been a byproduct of being really frustrated with missing so many shots, then having a bad turnover, then being told to calm down. No, you calm down. So, again, as a Dallas Mavericks fan, I'm all for keeping Luka. Whatever it takes to keep Luka Doncic here in the Dallas Mavericks uniform, that is all we want. And on top of that, we also want to give him a chance to win. Now, we've recognized that the Josh Richardson trade was not a good trade. And I personally don't want to trade KP, but if we trade KP, he still has a lot of value to me. So I'm not going to just trade him for anything, because I do believe that he still can develop into being that number 2 for Luka. But we definitely need another ball creator, a ball handler, a shot creator, a playmaker, like a Chris Paul, something like that. But we definitely need something on this team. But I'm not going to say that the decisions that were made weren't done in poor choice. It just didn't pan out. It didn't come out. And unfortunately, the Clippers did tank to play us, and they did beat us, even though we took them to 7 games. I think we would have definitely made the second round if we played the Denver Nuggets this year. So with this report coming out, who knows? Mark Cuban reacting to it, saying total bullshit is, I don't know. Normally I'm on Mark Cuban's side for the majority of the time, but when you react so defensively to a report in that way, to me, there's got to be something there, just as much as the whole sexual harassment situation that the Mavericks had a couple years ago. There was something there. And if I'm Mark Cuban, if you need a GM that will bust his ass, try to get you the best team, the person that I would suggest the Mavericks go out and hire would be myself and my friends, because we're diehard Mavericks fans and we don't gas up each other. We're going to try to be as critical with each other and try to find the best talent for this damn team that's around Luka. Other than that, I think the Mark Cuban needs to do a better job. If this report is true, he needs to do a better job in being more involved. If you handing over the reins to a gambler, come on, man. I just don't think that's going to end well. So in ending, we didn't find any footage to prove that Luka did yell at Voulgaris. I don't buy that Rick Carlisle actually listened to those rotation and lineup suggestions. And if he did, that's an issue for damn sure. But I don't see it. We had COVID and injury issues, so he had to change the lineup up. And from the analytics perspective, I get that earlier, before the postseason started, they were talking about the pick and roll with Luka. For every pick and roll, you average a point or whatever the case may be. And then in the playoffs, we don't even get no pick and rolls from Luka and KP. So that in itself is like, you got to wait from the analytics. And I know the analytics, they did use it because they kept targeting other players that weren't as good defensively. But there's that one video where Kobe talks about James Harden's style of play when he was with the Rockets. And he was like, yeah, it's nice and it keeps your team afloat, but it doesn't win championships. When you're just playing and everyone's facing you in front of you, they know where you're at. And that's not championship ball. You got to be able to move around and disappear from everyone's line of sight. And that's kind of what I feel like the Mavericks are kind of right now. Luka's a superior talent. He gets his team involved when he can. He definitely gets his shots when he can, as long as he ain't getting double teamed. But I think when Kobe said that about James Harden, I think he's just saying that in general about this entire league. And I think it kind of comes into this conversation with Luka. We need another ball handler. And to have a gambler as a GM or a closet shadow GM, I don't think that works for us. We need someone to actually be a GM. I'm going to throw my hand in that hat, see if they want to pick me up. But I think Mark Cuban definitely needs to look into getting an actual GM for this team. So I'm going to end off this video with playing the interview from Tim Cato to the 105.3 The Fan. And so y'all can hear it for yourselves. Y'all can make whatever y'all want to make out of it. Again, if this report is true, it is a little bit concerning. Quite concerning, actually. And the Mavericks need to get a handle on what the hell they're doing in that front office, because it does come off a little dysfunctional, especially with the issues that have been made noticed or made aware in that report. So I'm all for being a Dallas Mavericks fan. I want us to be successful. I want us to get a better team. And I definitely don't want to see any more reports coming out of this front office. We've had enough with the whole sexual harassment situation. Now this situation with a gambler up there, we don't need that. We need a better front office. And if it's Michael Finley that got to be the GM, Rick Carlisle that got to be a GM, I don't know. Somebody that actually has skin on the wall in this league needs to be the GM and not some gambler. I'm sorry, I don't care about the connection Mark Cuban had with him, but it's all about the optics, my guy. You need someone that has actual pedigree in this league. And from a Mavericks perspective, I didn't know he was a GM because he's not. But if that report didn't come out and make that a thing for us to be aware of, would we have ever known? And that's an issue in itself. Anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed this video. Comment down below. I need to conversate with y'all, see what y'all think, what I missed, what you think about this entire report, and definitely check out this interview at the end. Without further ado, it's been your boy TGK. I'm going to catch you on the next one.
On DFW Sports Station 105.3 The Fan. And good afternoon to you, Tim. How you doing?
What's up, fellas? How are you?
We're doing good. Thanks for the content. An epic story, really. What led you to decide to put this story together?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it definitely wasn't me like thinking, oh, now's the time. Here's the thing. I think in a lot of ways, the summer was always going to be an inflection point for the front office. From everything I've been hearing, and as I heard more about the story in the months that, in the past months and things like that, it does really seem like, this is a moment where a lot of the issues in the front office, a lot of the unclear power lines and dynamics, that are not just not tracking effectively, to the point that league executives, from other NBA teams are saying, I don't know who to communicate with necessarily. I don't know who's actually holding power. All of these things really seem like they were, starting to build up in a way, in a water boiling over the stovetop way this summer. And so as I heard more about the story and finally got to a point where I was comfortable reporting it, it just felt like it was, not, it's not like me reporting this was going to dramatically change the way that, this offseason was seen or viewed, at least internally, at least not privately. Obviously me breaking it, put it out there. But yeah, that's kind of the gist of how I feel this came together.
Yeah, Tim, as you were, you could say, putting this together, did you have to leave even anything out, or did you just empty your bucket on this one and say, hey, this is how I can, this is how I could best frame the situation with the Dallas Mavericks?
Oh, I mean, there's plenty that I heard that I would say mostly was stuff that I heard from a level of sourcing or wasn't confirmed or, didn't have people doubling down on it, that made me comfortable enough to run it. So yeah, I would say that's definitely the case. There's probably a few details that, I would have ran if I thought they fit the story and fit what I was writing. But I just didn't feel like they did. But yeah, there's definitely a lot out there. There's names that just don't come up, that often. People have been asking me all day about, did you hear more about Kristaps Porzingis? That one, I thought it was interesting. I really didn't. I really didn't hear more about Kristaps. I thought that was going to go on. And, I think the reporting that's been done and is out there about him is pretty much accurate as far as I know. But, there's also people like Donnie Nelson, who I think is an important factor in this front office, both his longevity and how long he's been around. And he's mentioned a few times, and we talk about him spearheading some trades and, how he contributed to the front office confusion, I think, in some ways. And, I don't have more to spill or share or things that I was just couldn't quite get confirmed. But I do think it's fair to say that, this story was more than just the obvious Bob focus was always going to be there based off the details I had. But I think the story is really about the front office at large in a lot of ways.
Tim, what's it like when after you've published your story, the owner of the team retweets it with the words "total bull stuff"? When you see that as a human, is there a part of you that goes, "Oh God," or is it just well, I did the work, so whatever?
Yeah, I mean, I stick by the reporting. It's not like this was a slapdash effort by me that I kind of tossed. I tossed in the story editor last night and was like, all right, let's do it. It's been so many months of reporting and so many consistent, just the level of people I've talked to, both in terms of quantity and then their, positions around the league and, eventually, some people with the team or some people who have good understandings of how certain players feel about the situation, et cetera, et cetera. This was all stuff that, I understand that Cuban, is going to do what he's going to do on Twitter. But if he wants to amplify and point people to that story, I mean, I guess that's an all right thing for him to do.
So I assume then, Tim, that he has not reached out to you yet about it, right?
No, I haven't talked to him on the record for any reason.
Okay.
Probably shouldn't talk. Yeah.
Okay, and let me ask you this one then. Has anybody in the organization reached out to you and said, good job, or you nailed it, or any of that stuff?
Another one where I'll be vague and don't really want to go specific details. But look, I mean, it's obvious that there was tension and friction and just a haphazard way that this front office had put stuff together. And was operating over the course of years. And nobody looks at this. And as we reported, Luka, his current desire is to stay long-term in Dallas. He's going to sign his extension. He said as much. But nobody wants to look back in 5 years and say, wow, we had Luka and we messed it up. Wow. We had a chance. We had our chance back to prominence. We had this perfect transition from Dirk Nowitzki to Luka Doncic. And, he was upset with people or, there was dynamics at play that weren't addressed. Or quite frankly, it can be as simple as saying they didn't put a good team around him, and that has to fall on the front office. Like, he's had 46 points and 14 assists in Game 7, and it wasn't competitive in the final minute. Like, you don't need reporting to understand that's an indictment on the front office structure and the moves and the deals they've made or on this team for this roster, the players they put around Luka. They haven't been good enough, and this is the moment where if there is reasons why that is the case, yeah, you got to get that figured out because Luka's clock is ticking. It's not this year, he's going to sign that extension, but the clock is ticking, and I think people around the league and people on the team are very aware that this is the moment where you have to get things right and make sure you don't waste these years with a generational superstar.
What's the cause of the haphazard way it was put together? Is Mark over managing? Is he venturing into being absentee? Between this and the sexual harassment storyline, it's like, does Mark know what's happening under his purview? What do you have any thoughts on that or theories, Tim?
He's definitely the most powerful person in the organization when it comes to the basketball side, and all decisions run through him. As I quoted someone saying, it is very clear that whoever he's most listening to, whoever is the person he trusts with this level of influence, is the person who I think is right and fair to say is the second most influential person in the organization. And I think in a lot of ways that's what Bob represented. I don't even think it was always in a bad way necessarily. I think a lot of the ideas and a lot of the moves the team made to, try to start building towards, this spread pick and roll offense with, an analytically minded, team around Luka, I think that made sense, in a lot of ways. But, as we always, it's always the process versus results. And the process, even if I think a lot of elements of it made a lot of sense, the results haven't been there. And, this is a results league, a results sport, a results world in a lot of ways. And I think that's where the concerns come in a lot of ways. And then additionally, as I'm sure we'll get to, just the way that certain people perceived, Luka included, Bob and his role and who he was and just interactions they had with him.
Yeah, it's Tim Cato in The Athletic. How much did Luka talk about this and how much he disliked or distrusted what Bob Voulgaris brings to the table for that front office?
Right. I mean, yeah, it's all the stuff reported in the story, like I don't have Luka on the record, nor do I think that he, is out here, wanting or trying to talk about him or talk about this on its whole. He certainly hasn't tweeted anything saying otherwise. But yeah, I mean, it's the examples are in the story where, it was clear that, whatever the factors that led him to believe this, there was the moment detailed right at the front where he yells at Bob on the sidelines. Sources say Bob was, he believed that was just a misunderstanding. It wasn't meant at him. But it wasn't that moment. It wasn't like it was one incident, two incidents specifically that, Luka was just unforgiving and was like, no, you meant this and I don't like you now. Like this had been, this is something that had been building, and whatever, I wish I'd been able to report more about, and I just didn't have, it wasn't something that I wanted to put in and didn't feel comfortable. It was just, I didn't hear, I couldn't get people to explain all the details in terms of what exactly, went down. But it's clear that, this person and what he represented to Luka was not someone that, Luka was too fond of. I think the reporting makes that clear. And so the big question becomes like, why was that the case? And how do you go forwards with a franchise player who is the most powerful person, or at least I should say not most powerful, but he's the one that every decision has to be made. And all the time when you're looking to the future, you have to examine the future through the lens of Luka. And if this is the way he feels, then yeah, it's an issue. That's a problem to have on a basketball team.
So it's Tim Cato, The Athletic. He wrote the article on the Mavs front office today on The Athletic, and it's absolutely incredible. This is going to be a long and winding road of a question. It's just the things that when I was reading it made me kind of go, man, that's really weird. For instance, you talked about how our guy Bob made the draft picks essentially without the scouts' input. And if he's the most influential guy, what is Donnie Nelson's current role with the Mavericks, and what's your understanding of that? And It's just there's so many things in there where you're just like, man, this seems like a cluster.
Right. I think, that was a source of the confusion in a lot of ways, was that, that it wasn't clear, Bob clearly had influence. He had a lot of influence. He, I think, even the story aside, you can look at the team and see that they were built kind of in this, specific vision that, it's not like a secret about the way Bob thinks about basketball. This team was built in a way, but at the same time, like Donnie was still involved in at times spearheading, trades, and mostly trades that didn't work out. Like the KP trade only worked out because they kind of stumbled into Hardaway, and the trade for Josh Richardson clearly was not as successful this season, and the trade for JJ Redick was also something that didn't really work. So, I think that the unclear delineations of power and who was making moves and at what times, I think that's definitely a factor in this piece. And, just the idea that, you need, every front office is messy. Every front office probably in pro sports has a level of people kind of, trying to make sure that their voice is the most important. That's always going to be the case. But, it clearly came to a head, and was building this summer in a specific way that allowed people to want to talk to me. And, without that happening, I don't think this is a story. It's the fact that, a lot of people in a lot of different areas thought that it was time to kind of show the cards and peel back the curtain in some ways. And as we know, this Mavericks front office is not one to share a lot. They're very good at that. And so I you can only come to the conclusion that, if people on the team are willing to view this and say, this has been such an issue, I worry about, the future around Luka, and that, the same sources around the league are looking at this and saying, like people are worried about this, and people on the team, even internally, are worried about this. You have to view it in a way that, okay, this has reached a boiling point that is very concerning and is something that they need to solve, even if it's not, a sign that Luka himself or like the situation is ruined, but it is something that needs to be solved and fixed now to make sure it doesn't reach that point.
Yeah, Tim, and as you say that, though, and I believe I was reading that Bob is the contract's up with him, the chance to be, re-signed and stuff. How do you think this is going to play out? I know it's probably an unfair question. I'm asking you to think like Mark Cuban here. But how would you venture to say this thing's going to either go forward or end for him?
Right. I think one thing I really tried hard to not try to speculate too far in advance or think, okay, what are the ramifications of what's the story is gonna do? Like, sure, I'm not dumb. I had an understanding of how it would be received and how a lot of where the focus would be on and things like that. But I don't know for sure how this is going to play out. It would be very surprising to me if the front office, as it existed the past 2 seasons, remains in place, headed forwards. And the two people who were mostly clashing in terms of influence were Bob and Donnie. But it's really hard to say. I don't know for sure. I do know that it just had reached a point where a lot of people were concerned, and a lot of people were, looking at the situation and saying, wow, are they, is this going to be a situation where, they look back and Luka is a guy who is just fed up with the situation all around, and perhaps the people that, he's tasked with interacting with because of their positions and influence and power on the team.
So, Tim, in the piece, when you were talking about sources telling you that from on high from Bob, the suggestion that like Rick Carlisle was having a lineup card handed to him and substitution patterns and all of that, it's weird because I don't feel like so many of these things would be a big deal, and they're not necessarily unique, where it's like, oh, the analytics guy has an idea on which lineup combinations work. Like, that all makes sense. But to me, it sounds incredibly awkward if it were literally like handed to you, like, this is what you're doing, coach. And is that what people were basically saying was happening?
Right. Yeah, I think that, just to talk about Rick for a second, this is someone who has very publicly changed and adapted the way he talks about Luka, and adapted to, just the dynamic of really giving this rookie, as going all the way back to his rookie season, even December, as early as then, he really gave over the reins of the offense to this player he realized, and everybody was realizing all at once, was a generational superstar talent, and something that they could absolutely not mess up, and that this is where the direction of the franchise was headed. And so I think you kind of saw Rick adapt in a lot of ways about how he was viewing and coaching Luka. And the big question, and this finally gets back to the actual question you asked, as I've rambled
I support that.
into this.
I support rambling.
Yeah, we're okay with rambling here.
We're all pro rambling.
Right.
But this big question is like, okay, I mean, I didn't report it. I didn't report that Rick was like, okay, I am being ordered. I am being specifically told. But the idea that he felt like he needed to heed this advice or follow this advice, and it once again goes back to the, Cuban is the most important person, and the second most important is whoever he's listening to. That's where that kind of all comes together for me, and in the reporting, and what I tried to convey in the story is that, perhaps like, people in the story would be like, no, we were just, this was a suggestion to Rick. This was, the best case scenario. I could probably imagine that Rick himself thought a lot of the advice was great. He's, in the course of his adjustments as a head coach, he's someone who has come to embrace analytics and an analytical view of thinking about basketball. He's famously the guy who went on this rant about how the post-up is just not a good play. And he was talking about Porzingis and, and responding to some people who, to the national halftime show, the Inside the NBA guys who are like, we just want KP to post up more. So this is definitely a way that he thinks. But the big question, and again, this is what I tried to convey in the reporting, is, how much of a say did he have? Even if it was presented in that manner, how much of a say did he have in saying, okay, but I feel I should do this the other way, and but I don't have the freedom to do it, and I have to adapt how I coach this team and how I do lineups, rotations, whatever. I have to adapt that to how they're being dictated to me in some ways by someone who has the influence he has. And players definitely said that, and players definitely felt that those rigid lineups were because of that. And that's another thing that I reported in the piece. It's just that, players grew very frustrated because they thought that these rigid standards that would be presented to them by Carlisle, were being presented not even directly by Carlisle himself, but rather, someone with more influence and power that Rick needed to listen to.
Tim, you've already gone overtime with this, and I really appreciate it. I did want to get this final question in. Would Mark let Luka go to hang on to Bob? There's no way that would happen, right? And is there any chance Luka's wanting to see Bob fired before he would do the long extension?
Oh, no way. And yeah, like I didn't report, as anybody reading the story will recognize, I did not point that Luka is actively, trying to use his power in any way to oust people or do stuff like this. Like, I reported the issues he has with certain people, and I thought it was a big statement that he just immediately came out at exit interviews and said, I'm going to sign I think what I'm going to do, when he was asked about signing the Supermax extension. So he's going to be in Dallas. He's going to be in Dallas for years to come. But whether, he remains happy or whether he starts thinking about, well, what if there's another team where I can win better, and win more effectively? I think that's the huge, big question, and that's why the story came about and came to be something I've released today.
Awesome stuff, man. Great journalism, and we appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Thank you.